In 1993, Final Approach changed the way we hunt waterfowl. Now, over 25 years later, we're back at it. My name's Mario, host of the FA podcast. Let's talk waterfowl tips, tricks, tactics, and more. It's all going down right here with the Final Approach podcast. All right, folks, FA podcast, joined by some real intellectuals this morning. I know that sounds pretty good, right?
I was going to say that's a loose statement, but
we're driving a fast car on ice this morning. We got Dan Compton, who is now like the main man in charge, the guru of shot shell ammunition at Federal and everything, right? So you have Federal and anything else shot shell wise that you guys have, right? Which is heavy shot and Remington stuff, right?
Yep, Federal heavy shot Remington. I've been a legacy Federal guy for about 13 years now.
Yeah.
And Remington came on board. It's close to 3 years for both the other brands. And we just felt it was good to kind of unite the product teams in a way in lanes so that, we can look at the market as one kind of group going forward and kind of, heavy shot means something to people and Federal means something to people and Remington means something to people, and try to maintain that and not trip over ourselves as we're trying to, put the best products out there too.
No, there's no doubt. And then we have Jake Edson, who are you a career Federal guy, or have you been other places or where?
I've been here for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I was actually a magazine editor for 10 years before that, working on outdoor publications. But I've been here for 10 years now, kind of bounced around doing marketing and public relations and different gigs. But I've been with the company for 10 years.
Where were you on the magazine trail? What anything that's still alive?
Yeah, so the Deer and Deer Hunting magazine. And then for a while we did Bass Pro Shops, Outdoor World. I don't know if you remember that. That was about 8-9 years ago.
Okay.
And Wisconsin Outdoor Journal.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, but you guys are all, the thing about today, you guys are career outdoorsmen. You know what I mean? You guys have been doing this as long as I have. Like, you guys have been chasing critters since you were kids. So, so all you young kids out there, you gotta listen to the old farts.
That's right.
We do have some information to help. I'm telling you, we do. I swear. Plus, where's my hat? Plus, like, this hat is probably older. This might be older than my kids, and it's been more places.
Well, that is weird. It is the retired logo.
Huh?
That is the retired logo. Now we've got the one line logo instead of the 3 stack like that. That's a classic.
Well,
what you should have Dan sign that and then retire.
Yeah, probably. I was gonna say it's kind of funny when you own a hat long enough that it becomes a throwback, right? Because at the time it was cutting edge
around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's been everywhere. It went to Sweden with us. It's been to Canada. I don't know how many times. I think it's been to New Zealand when I went down there in like 16. So yeah, that hat's traveled the world. It's pretty wild. So
it's a good one.
Yeah. Well, then let's get into a couple things like shot shell related and shooting related, so we can kind of, maybe help some folks who, maybe didn't have a good shooting year last year, or they're trying to get the right fit. And Jake, you said before we started, patterning, we could talk about that. I want to talk about bismuth. You want to talk about that. I want to talk about just being consistent with your feet per second. So, even if you go up and, you go 2s to 4s or BBs, like that, you're keeping your feet per second, because that to me, I think, has always made the difference. And I've always stressed that part of it. You know what I mean? Because once you change the feet per second, your lead changes, and then you're all over the board. So we could start wherever. I don't know who wants to.
Yeah,
jump.
I think that's a good spot to start too. And it's going to be, so let's say you've always shot, like our two most common loads, and pick whatever you're talking, black cloud, you're talking speed shock. You got 1.25 ounces, around 1450 or 1500, and you got 1.125 ounces around 1550, or in black cloud it's 1635. So it's cooking pretty good.
Yep.
At 15 yards, that means a little bit. At 30 yards, it means more. And if you're pushing it 40, it means a lot, right? So
Yes.
You can definitely, what you start with to hunt through the year, you can change around, but you might have a little bit of a learning curve, as opposed to, our goal is to go out and put as many ducks on the ground or in the boat as possible. So
Right.
Finding that load, shooting it at paper and shooting over the course of the summer too, a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of, Jake and I, we shoot sporting clays together, and the two things are different, right? We're shooting a lighter load, we're shooting slower,
Yes.
but we're shooting, right? And that the mechanics of that, I remember when I played football. I'm jumping around on you.
No, you're
But
fine.
when you start 2-a-day practice in August, the speed of the game going on in your head versus the last game of the season,
100%.
everything has just really appeared to slow down. So the more you shoot, that first hunt of the year, let's say you haven't shot your gun all year, it's going to be chaos the first time some gals cut them. You're trying to pick them out, but by the end, if you're doing a lot of hunting, you shoot a lot more. Eventually it comes up and you're just seeing like the notes on a page, they're just focusing in on you. So the more you shoot is good. And then knowing that load you shoot, I think it's key.
So I'm like you. I always do on speed shock. I always do 1.125 twos. I think they're going 1550. I'm shooting that. And then if I go to black cloud, I think I go to the 1450, or I can jump to the 1635 if, and it's like you said, it is a slight difference, but we're always trying to get them close. But on those long shots, and like you said, the more you shoot and the more you are hunting or just chasing birds, you can get on target. It's very simple to just get in a rhythm. And I always think it is a rhythm, and you get shooting and you get into it, and you just don't even, like you guys and myself, like you said, we shoot and hunt so much that I don't think about anything. It's when your head gets involved in the game and you miss once or you miss twice, and then all of a sudden it becomes a head game. And then you're like, okay, let's go back to the basics and just like go shoot some clays. Like I always tell guys, especially bird hunters, like if you can shoot pigeons in the summer, if you got pigeons, if you got, go shoot flyers for a hunt test club that's running dogs. You know what I mean? They're always looking for guys to shoot birds in the summertime. You go do that. You go shoot like pest birds, like, starlings and blackbirds. Like we have a lot of blueberry farms and stuff out here. Like they're dying for you to come out. You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that you can, because the sporting clays obviously is one thing, but like you said, you got to shoot lower loads. You know what I mean? You got to shoot low brass or whatever at a place. They don't let you come in and, pop off 3-inch twos, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little different. So you just got to get in your lane. Go ahead, Jake. What?
Yeah, but like using that football analogy, right? So like your quarterback, right? He's going to have multiple receivers. Yes. And starting out in, summer camps and stuff, those receivers run at different speeds, and he might be a little bit off kilter, but by the end of the season, he can throw to his 3 or 4 guys. Yeah. Where he might have a problem is if you trade for somebody at the end of the season and you bring some guy in, right?
He's not
like that football analogy kind of holds. So if you bring something in the middle of the season, you haven't thrown passes to it. Yep. There's a little bit of a learning curve there with that specific receiver or speed.
There's no doubt that is 100%. Like I always used, and this is a long time ago when seminars were huge and we're going to all the stores, and this is, I'm dating myself, but this is years ago. Right. So, and I'd always make the analogy and make the joke when we talk about shooting is that, you have that guy in the blind with you and he's, reaching in his bucket and he's pulling out like a green one and a red one and a blue one. He's got like, 17 different colors in there, and he doesn't know what's going what. And then the first shell's going, 1550 and he pulls up and he misses, and then the next shell's going like 1300, so then he corrects, but it not for that shell, right? And then the last one's going 1400. Like he's so screwed just in what he put in his gun that whatever he did doesn't even matter, because he's so out of it. You know what I mean? You're like out of the game at that point. You're dead in the water. Like you can't do that and be successful. You know, there's no way. So I always used to talk about that, and that was the thing that really got me pushing. You know, try to stay. You know, I guess it's just simple, like stay feet per second or even close, like you said, Dan, at 15 yards, 20 yards, like it's not that big of a deal, right? It's a little bit, but then when you start, like if you have to stretch a little or a bird's getting out and you got to flare out, like you got to know what your ammo can do, you know?
Yeah, and you think like, you know, snow goose hunting, right? Where, you know, you may be finishing them close, but the odds are you're probably pushing the edge of range. And
yes,
you know, that's where you're really, you know, you're gonna see it. And when you said, you know, our heads get in the way, you know, when I pop up and there's a bird crossing, he's right there, I don't even think swing through and shoot. When it's flying away on the last shot, that's where I'm like, where do I need to be? And
the
like,
pressure's
do I need to
on.
lob it in, or am I coming under him? You know, and then it like I'm just, you know, paying my own salary then, but just dumping steel into the dirt. So, you know.
Yeah, but the pressure's on, you know what I mean? We've all been there. And it's like, you just, you know, plus you're with a bunch of guys and you just ran too hot and nothing happened. And then you're like, he's on the way out and you're like, oh my God, I got to pull off the BB here. I got to pull off the golden BB. Somebody, you know, Oprah, help me, Tom Cruise, Jesus, you know, help me, you know, like I got to get a flyer on the way out. So yeah, that is definitely a big thing. And it's a mental game too. It's a mental game. And the more you shoot, you know, the more you feel comfortable. And listen, everybody's going to miss. And, you know, I mean, holy crap, like that's just going to happen, but you can't let it get in your head. There's no doubt. Even with if you have all the science, right, and all that, like you still can't let it get in your head, or then you're done. You're dead.
That's why I like it when you call the shot, man. I can just keep my head down. And like, I don't have to sit there and watch the bird come in and be like, okay, this one's up there. I gotta lead this one by 1.5 lengths or whatever. If I got my head down and all of a sudden Mario's just yelling, cut him, I can just pull up.
You know, that honestly, like just what you're saying there is a huge thing. Like we tell a lot of guys, like I know when there's a huge group of birds and if you're, like you said, like if you could just come up and pick one and shoot, like your reaction is like perfect, right? But it's the guys that are like staring at the flock, like they're like, you know, here they come, they're on the deck for like 100 yards and you're watching the whole time and they're coming. And then it's like, you think you got one picked out, but then everybody says, kill him, and you stand up and they all just go, you know, and then it's like, then you got to pick one and then you're picking one and then you're a mess. So there's a lot to be said for that too. You know what I mean? So that's definitely another note. Like, listen, the wheels come off at some point during the hunt. If it doesn't, like, it's not a real deal hunt. Like something's going to happen. So I guess you're just doing all this training and doing everything you can, like with the science and the feet per second and, you know, knowing all your analytics, let's call it, and then just being able to shoot and practice. And, you know, so all that falls into place, all of it.
Yeah. It's like, there's a couple of things you can, you know, to learn the ammo, right? You could pattern it. We always recommend patterning you know, put up a piece of cardboard, you know, shoot it at 10, shoot it at 20, shoot it at 30, shoot it at 40, try different choke tubes. You might just find, you know, just because you're running whatever tube you're running, Mario, what I have in my gun, that doesn't mean we're going to get the same results. There's there's some sort of black magic in, you know, forcing cone relations on different shotguns and things like that. So, I mean, that's probably your best arrow in the quiver is patterning at a target, and you're looking for a good even pattern. At some point, you're going to find out that, man, this thing's pretty open, and you know, I need to keep it under 30 yards when I'm shooting this load. So that's like the best tool there. The lead piece, that's where time in the field comes in, because that's really the only way you can learn it. You know, we've seen stories. I've heard stories of some writer. I can't remember who told me this, Jake, but like he set up like a target on his boat and then had his wife drive a car by, and then he was like shooting at a great big piece of paper, trying to get a feel of shot string. I've heard of like spinning. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've heard of spinning tires downfield. You know, we've had ideas on how to represent it, but I mean, there's really no replacing for actually shooting birds in the field to learn a good lead. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
The tire down the field, that's like a giant rabbit, right?
Yes.
Like sporting clays, like that's a big rabbit. Like, holy crap, that's bigger than the rabbits they got in Sweden, the hares. That's a big one.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you get one of those CrossFit tires, put a great big piece of paper on it, roll her down a hill and just start bucking at it and see what happens. Because you got a good leading edge to put a bead on, right? You can put it right on the edge and you can see,
and see what happens.
You know, I'll let you do that.
The pattern stuff that you're talking about too. Like I'm big onto the choke tube side too. I'm always like practicing and checking stuff like that. So I always tell people, okay, so once you put it on paper, like the thing that you can't see on paper is when your pellets are getting there, right? So then I'll tell people, like, take like a jug or take like something and go out on the water and shoot it on the water to see, like, do you have a long shot string? Is your shot string short? Like, you know, because like for some people, a long shot string and what shot string is your first pellet out and your last pellet as it stretches and goes down range, right? So is it short or is it long? Some people might need a long one because they're used to shooting at that bird. And as he's coming through, if your shot string's, 12, 14 feet and that bird just flies in there somewhere, it's going to get clipped, right? So some people might need a longer shot string. I don't like it. I like a short one. So that's why I run the tubes that I run. And then you can see on the water when everything's getting there. You know what I mean? Like I always tell them that's a huge thing. And you could also see the shot string on the water because you can't see it on paper because you're like,
yeah, for sure.
You shoot and everything's down there. You're like, oh, okay. It got there at the same time. Well, it really didn't. So that's a good indicator of what's going on too. So then you kind of know, because like if we're shooting like, you shoot like a wad stripper, or you shoot like a kicks or a pattern master and your shot string is tighter, like you have less play, you know what I mean, in the shot string. So if you're not on it and you're not used to shooting that, you're like, you hit the death sentence for yourself. Like if you're not used to it, you're dead in the water on that. Like a longer shot string on just a regular person is going to be better for like just a person starting to shoot. So as you get more advanced, there's a lot more things to look at down the road. So, but then you can go to turkey hunting and you're like, I just need to put it on paper and I just need to saw his head off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because, he's not flying unless you can jump shoot him. I mean, you can jump shoot him get him out of the tree and just like the fly down shot.
Yeah. When you say personal preference on shot string too, there's a lot of work. We've done a lot of analysis on it. There's no, just like the load, man, there's no magic formula or like, short string is where it's at and long string is where it's at, or open or tight. It really comes down to the shooter, and I'd say maybe the situation, but I think the shooter is going to be, and you'll have to learn that for yourself. I would love, we could just be like, hey, you're going out to shoot ducks at 20 yards and be mallards, and here's a number 2 with this, kicks choke tube and your shotgun, and you're good to go. But we're not as there's too many other variables that come into play to just be able to say that. There's no doubt. And you listen, you can get into what gun you're shooting as to where it shoots. Does it shoot high? Does it shoot, right on? Like there's a lot, there's so many variables, but I guess the most important thing about all this is like, you really have to dig into your setup to make sure you're on. You know what I mean? And that goes, like you said, from start to finish. That goes from, the gun, the choke, obviously the ammo, pick which ammo fits you, certain situations, like, the more you do this and hunt and go out, like the more you're going to learn. It's just that simple, Yeah.
So
Like I have, when you talk about types of guns, like I got a Benelli, and then I got a Benelli Super Black Eagle 2, and I got a Super Black Eagle 3. Those are two completely different firearms.
yes,
And
because of the
to
way
the
they
point
shoot.
where, yeah, and I have to have the 3 fitted to shoot like the 2 I had.
That's right.
And, we're fortunate, that sometimes we've gone, media hunts such as, and then they just give you a gun because that's what you shoot. If we hunt with you, we
100%.
try to, support you guys and Weatherby. So,
Yep.
When we went to Sweden this year, we were just kind of handed guns.
Yeah.
And they just fit like a champ. But, I went on a dove hunt this year and pulled out my father-in-law's old 20 gauge because I thought it'd be fun to shoot. And I couldn't hit anything. I had people watching me and like I was embarrassed, and I made jokes like, yeah, I'm the shot shell guy, so I shoot as much as I can. It really doesn't matter, but it was awful. And I switched back, hit like my next 5 out of 7. So then it was like a confidence booster I needed. But it really, I made the mistake. I never shot it. I just grabbed a gun, went to the field, threw some loads into it, and the results showed themselves, right? I'm guessing I was shooting probably under them, but I don't know because I never figured it out.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's a ton of people that are that advanced, you know what I mean, that have that opportunity where they're, they get to go on a hunt and then they just get handed a gun. Like usually everybody has their gun and they're going. So, so hopefully that isn't like an issue, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been on a lot of those where you just get handed, and then, like I said, I'm a choke tube guy, so I travel with mine. But if mine doesn't fit the gun, the gun that they give me, then I'm guessing, then I gotta shoot a couple birds, or try to shoot a couple birds and see like where I'm at. Like, am I off the board or what am I doing? You know what I mean? So I really got to look at that. So yeah, there's definitely so much to go into it, and that goes into play. I keep saying science, but it kind of is a science of getting everything together. And thank God I don't like chase deer or anything, because then I'd have to go into that whole ballistic category and go down that road. And bro, I don't think my math skills are up to par to like go down that road. Like I'll leave that to you guys. And if I gotta shoot a coyote, like at least I know what loads I run out of my 223, to put them down. That's it. That's all I need to know. Like I'm good. And at the range, if I'm shooting 9 or 9 mil or 40, like, yeah, I'm just punching paper, so I'm okay. So
well, there's definitely a lot more into shooting shot shells than I think rifle. I mean, unless you want to talk about long range, but really, it's again, back to the sports analogy, practice, and you can really mitigate a lot of that, black magic stuff by just getting out there and trying it and patterning it and practicing.
Yeah, because on the rifle thing, like you said, I mean, for the most part, say you're only you're shooting your rifle and you're checking it at 100 and you're good to 200 or whatever, but you're standing still, the animal's not moving, I mean, sometimes you might have to shoot them like that, but holy God, like good luck on that. Like that's a pretty good, that's like some, that's some Brad Fenson shooting, you know what I mean? Like I've seen him take some, Brad's an outdoor writer. You guys have seen him on the show and on the web series and everything else. Brad's an incredible shot. And I've seen him shoot some stuff on the run that you just go, I don't even know how that happens. And then yeah. And then you're like there was I'll just jump a story real quick. So Brad's on a rider hunt. They're on an elk hunt and a deer hunt or something. And he's with a bunch of guys that are outdoor industry guys. And there's a big mule deer across the canyon. And he's like, I don't know, like 300 yards or something. And something spooked the deer, and Brad was ready to shoot, and the deer takes off, and Brad shoots him on the run and drops him. And they're like, oh my God, like, get ready. You might have to shoot him again. Like, we don't know where you hit him. And Brad's like, he's down. I got him. And they're like, and literally, like, he kicked a couple times. And by the time they get over there, they're like, oh, that was a good shot. You must've, put it, whatever. And Brad said, I was aiming right for the heart to punch him out, and they get over there, and sure as hell, it is punched out right in the heart. And he wasn't on a dead run, but he was moving, and everybody was like stunned. like the guy, like
Mhm.
everybody was just stunned. But if anybody knows like all that ballistic stuff and everything, like he is in tune with everything he's got. So, and that's the thing, that's the key. Like if
Yep.
you want to look like a star and shine like a star, you got to practice, right? Like a star.
Yeah. You put in the
So
time.
yeah, you definitely got to put in the time. So we're talking to the guys from Federal, we're talking to Jake Edson, and we're talking to Dan Compton. And one thing we want to talk about is bismuth, because I think you said it right before we started, Jake. Like I don't know if, because I don't even know if I totally understand it, because I haven't shot it that much. You know what I mean? So let's talk about bismuth, because we're seeing a lot more. I want to talk about bismuth, and then I want to talk about some TSS stuff too, because like there's a lot going on the TSS side for sure. But let's go bismuth first.
Yeah, I think we tee it up for Dan. Dan's the expert on it. But
Sure.
some of the insights that we've got is that there's a lot of consumers out there that basically know what it is, know that it's a non-tox option,
Right.
but they haven't really had a lot of experience with it, and they don't really know selecting shot size or how it compares to different things that they have shot.
Great.
And then also, kind of like you just said, right, there's the TSS discussion, and then there's bismuth discussion. And
Yes.
some people they kind of lump all that together. It's these other non-toxic shots, right? But
Yes.
their TSS and bismuth are very different. And
Very.
Dan, I'll tee it up to you. Like, kind of lay out the big differences between bismuth, TSS, and steel.
Yeah.
Sure. You kind of got to go back so when ammo was made, it was found that lead is this very soft and malleable, easy to work with, and fairly inexpensive metal.
Right.
That works perfectly for ammunition, right? You're taking these pellets, you're putting them into a tube of some kind, you're trying to force them down a barrel, they kind of mold and meld to each other, easy to work with and affordable, like I said.
Right.
In the early 90s, lead was deemed to be, harmful to waterfowl, or, they didn't, like mallards were going around picking up pellets off the ground. So we switched over. We had to find other alternatives that would be considered non-toxic. So steel was the front runner at the time. Metals are based on what they call density, and you measure it by grams per cubic centimeter. So you'll hear grams per cc. We published it all over, or you'll see on a box, it'll say, 9.6 density or 12 density or 15. And most people, I don't know, somebody finally put it to me and they're like, so I take 1 cubic centimeter of that metal, solid metal, and I weigh it, and I'm going to get, 9.6 grams or 7.8 grams or 18 grams. So then that helped me think, okay, so I can put my brain around that,
Right.
think, take a tennis ball and a baseball, right? Two very similar size objects, but one's got a hell of a lot more mass to it.
Yes.
Those two objects flying at the same speed, one's going to hit an awful lot harder too. So your baseball is like, your denser metal, and your tennis ball is your less dense metal. So steel comes in right around like 7.8 grams per cc,
Okay.
What we found early in the 90s, you can maybe remember this, Mario. I'd started ducking, I think I was 16, it was probably 1993-ish. And, that was right when the switch was happening. So I really never knew a world where guys could, shoot lead. And I just remember hearing how bad it was. But what ammo companies did, they came out and they were loading them at the same speeds of lead. Automatically, lead's 11 grams per cc, so it's a denser product. You don't need as much speed to hit the bird as hard. So that's why you'll see steel fast. Everybody started jacking the speeds up.
Yes.
Remington really pushed it with the hypersonic at 1700. There's still guys that shoot that. But there's always a trade-off. As you go faster, you're going to get more recoil. So then it was like, what other metals would work? And what came out was tungsten. There was tungsten alloys, tungsten blends, with polymers and tungsten pressed together in the pellets, and bismuth.
Yep.
And I would say they both kind of ran their course at the end of the 90s, early 2000s, and kind of faded away.
Yeah.
And then in the past 10 years, you've seen a resurgence. Kent started loading bismuth. There's other companies as well. And then Heavy Shot really changed the game when they came out with the Heavy Shot pellet, which was right around 13 grams per cc tungsten. So as your density goes up, your lethality gets better going at the same speed. You can technically, if you're shooting tungsten, shoot at a lower recoil, like a less speed, have the same power, And then that's going to be easier on your shoulder, which is going to help you recover and get on your next bird quicker. So
well, I remember, I don't want to cut you off, but I do.
No,
I
go ahead.
remember, like you said, like tungsten and everything like ran its course. And I think it ran its course then because when steel first started, like you said, they were loading it like it was lead, and they didn't really know everything about it. So honestly, like everybody would complain about steel. I remember like when it was first out, because honestly, it was crappy because they weren't loading it right. Right. So then it, as steel kept going and you had to do it, like all the companies started saying, well, we got to do our research, right? So we got to get this steel stuff because we're stuck with it. So we got to get it right. So then everything started getting better, and the price was totally different from, say, tungsten, right? Tungsten was way higher as far as buying it. So I think as the steel got better, that tungsten and everything else kind of waved out because steel did get better, because it took, for a lack of a better term, it was a shit show at the start coming from lead.
Sure.
Because I remember my dad, shooting 2 3/4 inch fives when I was a kid. I wasn't even hunting. And my memories were like, my dad was just smashing birds, right? And then we go to steel and the whole game changed. You know what I mean? So 100%. So go ahead, you could pick up there, but I had to put that in because I remember it.
Yeah, it got better, and technology's got better. Companies got smarter, wads got better. The polyethylenes we use in wads can make wads that weren't possible to make then, better tailored wads that weren't just taking steel and putting it in a shot cup that was used for lead. We have different ones for different things, and that's really helped. And then like super premium steels, like there was Speed Shock, and then there was premium, Federal Premium in the orange box, but then Black Cloud came out. You got a flight control wad, which is now giving you a super even pattern, consistent pattern, and different shot shapes that are cutting better big holes in birds. And we kind of came up with this magic blend. So I think steel's kind of riding its zenith.
It's peak. It's at its peak right now, no doubt.
There's lots of good options. Things are going well. So then you always have that people are like, well, what's next? Like, what's the what's better?
Right.
Or potentially And ultimately, steel is relatively affordable compared to lead. But there's, some people want the best, and they want the best. So then that's where the tungsten come into play, and the heavy shots come into play. And then, and that's where bismuth is kind of seeing a resurgence. So bismuth is closer to lead in density, where steel's 7.6, bismuth 9.6, where lead's 11. So if you're rocking them at about the same speed, you're going to have, you can shoot a bismuth at like a number 4 or number 2 bismuth at 1350. That's going to be about the equivalent of your number 3 steel going 1400, or so. So you got to go down a pellet.
Right.
I'm sorry, I went the wrong way on you. I should have said, thinking lead, went from lead to bismuth. So on bismuth, it's denser than steel, so you can get away with a smaller pellet. So if you're going to shoot number 2 steel at 1400, a bismuth at 1350, and number 3 is where you go. And what you gained is more pellet count inside the load. So now you got more you got the same outer edge of your pattern. You got more pellets spreading across of it because you went down a pellet size.
And you're denser.
Yeah, and you're denser. So you're automatically going to have more energy when you hit it. And anytime you can downsize a pellet, you get better penetration because you got less resistance punching through the bird.
That's right.
So I think we kind of sometimes bigger is better, but sometimes, if we understand the metals and how they work, going down a size can be your benefit as well. And even smaller if we get into tungsten.
What's the closest to lead? Is it a TSS? Is it bismuth? What is it as far as density or the weight? Like you say, like nothing's like lead. So what's the closest? And then Jake, you're up there.
Yeah. So lead sits at 11 grams per cc.
Right.
And bismuth is going to be 9.6, so it's just under it.
Okay.
And then your tungstens now become, there's tungsten, pure tungsten sits right around in the wild, 19 grams per cc. The highest that it can be refined at, that we can get away with and get pellets made, is at 18. So your TSS, your tungsten super shot, is 18 grams per cc. So it's if you see anything less, there's other metals in there cutting the alloy down, or it's the purity of the tungsten isn't as much. So you go from heavy shot sits right around 12, and they're heavy 12. That's going to be pretty close to lead, just over it.
Yes. Okay, go ahead, Jake.
Well, that was where I was going too. So Dan was talking about your options that are close to steel, and then your pellet size gets smaller, right? Well, then when you get into the apex of performance, you can really, really go down in pellet size, like really go down. And that's where you get into the TSS. And so TSS is really a whole different animal than kind of these other non-toxic shots we're talking about. Like, so you got bismuth right in there about what lead used to be, just a little better. It's better than steel as far as density.
Right.
And like you got your heavy shot, 12 grams, that tungsten blend. But then you start talking about TSS, which Dan was talking about, is closer to the pure metal of tungsten, and that it really is a totally different animal. And you can really get into small shot sizes then and have that same performance. So that's where you start seeing these like 7s and 9s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and they are hitting as hard as like your 2, and you just get so many more pellets than that you can fit into that shot shell. And so that's where I think the point is that TSS is just a completely different animal, and you have to think about it completely differently than you would with, your tungsten blends or your bismuth or steel.
Well, yeah, guys will be like, why are you guys loading like 3s and 9s, or like that's the one load, right? 3s and 9s.
Yep, there's a 3s and 9s and a double B and 7.
And it's like I'm like, do you know what those 3s and 9s like do? Like, it's like swinging a giant hammer, like, like you said, the density, all the pellets, like, so now you're doing 3s and 9s. Like, let me ask you this, Dan, as far as pellet count, and I know that this is sketchy, pellet count in 3s and 9s, right, of TSS versus like a 3-inch 2, whatever, could be Black Cloud or Speed Shock. Like, what's the difference in pellet count? Like, obviously I put you on the spot. That's a lot.
I don't have it in front of me, and I should have, but I don't have it in front of me.
But when I'm getting on, it's a lot. It's a huge difference.
It is. Yeah.
So just like you said, Jake, like, you're talking about more pellets on target that are also, they might be smaller, but they're denser. So it's putting, like, you are putting the hammer down, like, for real. And it is a different animal.
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers, but it's several hundred.
That's what I mean. Like, it is a lot. Like, when people go, oh, it's a lot, like, is it 30, 40 pellets? No, it is a lot. So like, when like, we've joked about this up in Canada with Tyler and those guys, and he said I just want like a couple, just like 9s, right? And he said, I just want to shoot one shell at a group of mallards that just come in and just float in, and everybody's grouped up. I just want to shoot once and see how many die, because he thinks, and I think he's right. Like, I think you would shoot 5, 6 birds, and I think they would be, if they were tight like that, like the way it's coming down range, like, I think you'd shoot 5 or 6, and I think they would be 100% stone dead, and nobody would be moving a foot. That's how bananas that is.
It's a big fly swatter. I mean, it smacks them right out of the sky.
I have a turkey analogy on pellet counts that I know pretty well.
Go.
Yeah. So the benefit of shooting like I said, bismuth, you go down a shot size. Tungsten, you go down weight, like a drastic shot size.
Yes.
So a number 5 copper plated lead is probably the most universal turkey hunting load, known to man.
Yep.
And that equivalent in terms of density at the same velocity is going to be a number 9 TSS. So you've gone to this very, very fine pellet. One of our most popular selling loads in TSS for turkeys is a 13/16 ounce 410. And that's really changed the game, right? So 13/16 ounces of number 9 shot, you're getting like 254 pellets, give or take. An 1 3/4 ounce of number 5 lead, which is the most universal popular load out there, is right around 258 pellets. So you got double the shot in a 12 gauge 3-inch shell at 1 3/4 ounces, then a 410 or 13/16 ounce. 2 pellets go in the same amount of velocity, and you got a third the recoil. So that's why the 410 thing is changing the game. So I think we're seeing that, I think a lot of our turkey shells are being sold is, to waterfowlers, that are shooting 410s, they're shooting some, 20 gauge. I think that's kind of the next step of the game. The byproduct of that, when you're talking about like, I'm a hunter, I'm getting started, I go to the store, I see a box of shells for $20, I see a box of shells for $50, and I see a box of shells for $80.
There's
lead and steel are roughly $1.20 per pound on the world market. Bismuth runs around 8, and tungsten runs around 40. So
yeah, I mean,
that performance is something you got to pay for. And I think that's what, us as we're trying to do better educators, as marketers, and as a company, is when you go to the store and you see this wall and you just see all these various prices, like, well, why am I paying $50 for a box versus 25 and so on? And you're paying for more lethality, better pellet counts, and ultimately, when you're paying for lethality, it's knockdown power. It's more birds on the ground.
I'll go back to what you just said, because we used to do this when I worked in the call market, right? You get to and it's the same thing. You get to the duck and goose call wall at the store, and you're like, and you're new to it, just like you're new at shot shells, right? You get to that section, you're like, holy shit, what do I do? Like, you're like, what do I pick? And it's like you said, there's a $30 call, there's a $150 call, there's like you said, it's totally different. So what I would tell people is start with something lower and test some, right? Just like in anything, like, you're not going to buy the best thing right out of the gate unless you absolutely know everything about it. You know what I mean? So if you're just starting out, you buy Speed Shock, right? It's $200 a case. You know what I mean? It's 3-inch twos. It's going, $1,550. It depends on which one you get. If it's 1 1/8 or 1 1/4, get it and start there and work your way up. Because the guys that are buying, the Black Cloud, the TSS, like, they know what they're doing. They've been shooting a long time. They got it figured out. And listen, it is 100% what you're talking about. Like, guys on the turkey loads that are now buying them for waterfowl, like, that has changed everything. Because so Steve Rogers Sr., right? I remember talking to him, and this was before like everything comes crazy on the waterfowl side with TSS. And he was like, yeah, I took some TSS out, and we were shooting ducks at like 50. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm thinking like, all right, like, that's no big deal. And he's like, I was shooting 410. And I was like, what? Just like you said, he's shooting 410 TSS and just throttling ducks flat dead. You know what I mean? So, and he's obviously a good shot. He's older than all of us, not to dime him out there, but he's got a lot of experience, right? But he knew what he could do as far as shooting, and was testing the limits of the shot shells. Like, let's check this out. Like, wait, maybe I can go down to 410 and shoot, or maybe I can shoot 20 all the time all year. You know what I mean? I'm getting older, my shoulder hurts a little bit, or whatever it is, right? So that, like, and I think that's what you're talking about. Like, where is the game going? Like, I think that part of the game is just going to keep growing, because of, the generation coming through wants to try something, maybe they want to downsize now. A lot of the duck clubs are going to 20 gauge only. You know what I mean? Like, you don't spook the birds as much because your property's not that big. So, you don't have such a loud boom. So there's a lot of variables that are definitely coming into play now. So and guys just want to, test it, and shoot that high dollar stuff that just absolutely rocks them. Like, I can, if you've shot enough, and you guys can both, you guys have both shot enough, that I've shot enough Speed Shock, and I've shot not as much TSS or Black Cloud than I have Speed Shock, but I can tell you there is a difference that you can 100% tell when you step up.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what, too, it depends on what you're hunting, right? Like, I'd be working for federal. I'd be happy if you bought TSS for everything, but I'll be the first to admit you probably don't need a 12 gauge TSS load for early teal, right? I mean,
Probably.
you're going to do good with Black Cloud or Speed Shock. If you want to go ahead and buy it or go to Bismuth, go ahead. But Black Cloud and Speed Shock are going to be fine for teal ripping through at 20 yards.
Well, and I always talk about this, like I talk about it on the web series on YouTube, and I go through this a lot. Like we will change what we're shooting with what we're doing. Like Canada, like a couple years ago, we're shooting ducks, and I think at that point, well, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, we were like ducks were pouring in like first go, and we were shooting like heavy shot threes. I think we're shooting like heavy steel threes or something, or heavy shot three. You know what I mean? We're just like poking them. And then the afternoon we're going to shoot honkers. So then I'm like, well, I'm going to move to like Black Cloud 3-inch twos. Right. And then literally the next morning, we were all supposed to leave. And Tyler's like, I found a group of cranes. We're going to go set up on the cranes. So then I'm like, I already know the crane game. Like I'm going 3.5-inch Black Cloud BBs because I want a headshot, and I want them lights out, because if you've ever chased a crane and got out there, and if he stands up and looks at you, you're like, I don't know who says, oh shit first, like him or, and I don't even think they say it. I think I just say it, and I'm like, oh no, because it's a fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to fight.
It's a knife fight.
Bro,
it is a knife fight.
It's 100% knife fight. But then what do they always tell you? Don't take a gun to a knife fight. And I don't want to shoot him again. Like you're right there. Like you go to pick him up and he stands up like a turkey, and you're like, holy crap. Mm-hmm. And then that freaking, the blade is like looking at you, and you're like, I don't want to do that ever. So I 100% move to a different category. So I always talk about, you guys have everything from the top to the bottom and I don't mean, good to best. I mean, you have something for everything that you could possibly chase. And there's an ammo, there's a load for anything you want to chase. You just got to know what to apply and what to buy.
And circling back, the start too, you want to practice with it, and you want to pattern it, right? Like my gun, if I'm shooting bismuth, I'm going to probably use my standard mod choke, where I've got a long range steel choke that just patterns steel like bonkers.
Yeah.
That bismuth patterns a little bit different through it. And
that's right.
For whatever reason, my gun. So if I switch, if I'm mid hunt, right? Like we're hunting mallards in the morning, and then we switch over. Let's say we switch over to divers, right? Or
yeah.
And I want to dial up that density a little bit, and I want to switch over to bismuth. I'm going to switch out choke tubes, because I know I've shot it in my gun. I know that I'm going to get a little bit better pattern with that other tube when I make that switch in shot.
And that's you knowing what to do. You know what I mean? Because I've done the same thing. I've gone to a close range tube up to a more tighter tube for that ammo. 100%. Go ahead, Dan. What were you going to say?
Oh, I like what you said about, you look at the wall and try it, and you can start here and work your way up, because as you get better, especially if you're learning, you'll notice,
yes,
that, whatever you chose that has improved, if you spent a few more bucks on it, or if it's a denser metal, you'll see the results. But like as a company, like we strive to have, we're not going to put a product out there that doesn't work. So Speed Shock at our opening price is, it's a great load. And
there's no doubt.
Tons of ducks. And you'll hear people say, oh, I don't need to spend any money because I've killed tons of that. Absolutely. And you still will. As the dollars go up, and as we put more technologies in, premium things cost a little bit more money.
Yes.
As you shoot, you will notice the improvements. And then it just comes down to, does that value enough, for what you're looking to spend? And I just say, like, try it. And if you have a couple, try it, Black Cloud TSS once, and tell me what you think. And then have, 10 of those rounds laying around for a rainy day, or a snow goose situation where they're not finishing, where you need them to be. And you might need to push that. you might need to be hitting them right at 40 or past, and
Yeah.
that's what you're going to do if you're going to bring birds home that day, but
Yeah, I mean,
so at least you can't, like,
yeah.
what would be considered sky busting before, as you change materials, becomes every day. You'll see it in turkey ranges. We're not promoting people to go shoot turkeys at 50 plus yards,
Right.
but by using a denser pellet, especially like in a larger size like a 7, you got an awful lot more insurance policy there to make sure that if you do call the shot and it's a little long, you're
Yeah.
going to put them down.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I definitely look at that and I go, okay, we're going to Montana or Wyoming in December, right? Birds are, honkers are giant. They've got their full on armor on for the winter. Like, they are stout, and we're talking, 11, 12, 13 pounds. Like, you got to do damage. So you need penetration and you need punch. So we absolutely move into that category. Now, if we're shooting ducks, just like you guys, I've shot so many ducks with speed shock, and geese for that matter, depends on when, that it's mind blowing, right? I love it, but I know when I need to step up. And that's a situation where I got to go definitely black cloud, if not TSS, depending on how the day's going. So that's why I said there. And like you said, from bottom to top, it means nothing. It just means you guys have so much to choose from. You just got to get in somewhere and get moving. And obviously the progression is always up. So yeah, get into speed shock, go to black cloud, like go to TSS, like try it all. There's a situation for everything that you guys make. You know what I mean? So that's the thing, like play your, like they say, play the wind, or play your situation with what you need for it. The tools, it's a tool.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, listen, we got a lot of info. It was incredible. I love having you guys on. And I can't wait for us to get out and shoot more.
Well, we'll keep making
I'd
the
say-
info.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
listen, bro.
Yep.
I've told everybody from the day I kind of got into the industry, and that's like, bro, they will make more. Keep shooting, because
Right.
we will not run out. Awesome. All right, guys, appreciate all the info. That's great insight. Hopefully that helps people who are either, getting started, novices, or are looking to, try something different and maybe step up to a bismuth, or I want to shoot my dad's old gun, you know what I mean? So I'm going to get a bismuth and run it out of there, or do something like that. Like maybe that helps somebody get their stuff together for the season so they could really get after them this year. So much appreciated as always.
And can I throw in a little plug? If you do still have some questions
Yes,
about the
go for it.
different shot options, we do have educational resources on federalpremium.com that talk about the different shots, what's out there, how to select it, and that sort of stuff.
Well, and there's a ton of info on the site. There's no doubt about it. And there's also the custom shop and everything else on there. There's so much on the website. Like you guys, listen, it is a technical product, right? Everything you make is technical. So there is a ton of information on there. So it is very easy. And if you're stumped, they could hit us up. You guys, like everything, like go for it. Like there is so much info and so many people to help. Like don't be afraid to ask. That's easy.
Yeah. And if they ask you on Facebook, we know what the answer is going to be: Speed Shock 2s.
Bro.
Yep. Done.
Listen, if I had to go somewhere and they said you could take one ammo, right? And I kill whatever, like we're going to shoot kangaroos, like whatever, right? I know what I'm taking, like, because I've shot it so much, right? I know, like, if I get somewhere, like you said, Dan, like they're going to give me a gun with a choke tube that I know nothing about. I at least know what Speed Shock 2s are going to do at 15, you know what I mean? I 100% know. I'll take the damn choke out and shoot the threads. Like I know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? So I'm okay. So, that to me is really important. Like if I'm stuck or if I go in a slump, I just go back to the basics and start over. You know what I mean? I know where my landing spot is. You know what I mean? But I also know when to step my game up and go, more punch and heavier. There's no doubt. So, it is what it is. You guys got it all. That's why we buy it. That's why we shoot it. That's what we do. So yeah. Awesome. Can't wait to shoot more stuff with you guys. I'm excited for the year.
Us
Awesome.
too.
Thanks, Mario.
All right, fellas. Appreciate it. Thank you guys. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Appreciate it. That's it, folks. That's the FA podcast for today. If you want to hit us up on social. You can get all the pages. You can go to the web series on YouTube, The Last Pass. You can go there. Hit us up at fabrand.com. That's what's going on with Final Approach.